Hey guys, HackerSploit here, back again with another video. Welcome back to the Hack the Box series. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at Blocky. So this is a retired box and it's a Linux target. So the reason I'm covering Blocky is primarily because it essentially covers various aspects of exploiting a Linux target. And a lot of you have actually been asking me to cover, the Linux exploitation process and also a bit of post-exploitation or privilege escalation. So that's what we're going to be doing. So I think I've gone through this before. I'm working from a different account yeah, I've already performed the nmap scan. So let's actually get started. So I'm just going to minimize that and I'll cat out the nmap scan here. So there we are, nmap all. You can take a look at my nmap scan options here. We essentially performed a sin scan or a half open scan, aggressive options there. We used the timing template T4 and we scanned all ports, right? So all the entire TCP, the entire port list for TCP, which is about 65,535 ports. And the services running are fairly simple. You can see we have FTP here, although we don't get a banner, which is interesting. We also have port 22 open, which is running SSH as expected, and it's running OpenSSH 7.2 P2, which is, as we know, vulnerable to username enumeration. We also have a web server running that's running Apache HTTPD 2.4.18. We get the banner of the target operating system, so we have an idea of what's running. We can see it's running Ubuntu, but not any version. We can't enumerate any particular version. And thanks to the HTTP generator script for nmap, we're able to tell that the target is running WordPress 4.8. The server header is Apache 2.4.18, and the title of the server is Blockycraft under construction. We also have a port here that's running on port 25565. That's running a Minecraft server, I believe. As for the operating system detection, we don't get anything conclusive in regards to both the distribution release or the actual kernel version, although you can see that for the kernel detection, it's guessing Linux 3.10 to 4.11 at 94%, but we'll actually see whether that will be of any help. So if we try and access the FTP port, so FTP and 1010, well, what's the IP right now? Let me just copy that here because the nmap scan is that actually I'm using here is on a different IP. Right, so we'll just hit enter and it's not actually bringing up a login prompt. So I'm not entirely sure that's working. That could just be gathering data, or it could be a honeypot. Let's see if we can get anything from nmap. Let me paste in the IP there, port 21, that is correct. Do we get anything there? No, we don't get anything. All right, so there's no banner there, so I'm not really sure what we can actually get from that. So what I'll do is let me just split up my screen here. Hopefully you can still see what's going on. Right, so let's take a look at, well, I'm guessing the SSH port has authentication, but we don't have any users yet, so we can't try anything. Let's try the web server. So I'm just going to copy the IP here. It's running on port 80. So paste and go. And we know it's running WordPress. And again, it looks like this server is hosting a Minecraft server, or it's actually used for Minecraft in some way. We have WordPress running, so that's version 4.8. And let's just try and see whether we have any robots. The robots file here, we can see that that's not found. Sitemap, I believe it's sitemap.xml or sitemaps.xml. And sometimes in WordPress, it'll actually store multiple sitemaps. All right, so that doesn't give us anything conclusive here. Let's see if we have directory listing enabled. So WordPress content, well, that doesn't display anything. Let's try the uploads directory. We have 2017, 07, and it looks like just images. So directory listing is enabled for the uploads directory, which is fine, I guess, because there's not really important information being stored here, but we have a cool list of wallpapers, I guess, if you play Minecraft in different resolutions, but nothing more there. So let's begin web enumeration here. So the first thing I'm going to do is let's just open up a Nikto session here. So Nikto h and then we say, you know, we can paste in the IP here. So nic.h http, we hit enter. Let's see whether we're able to enumerate anything there. I also want to run GoBuster and then WordPress scan if we aren't able to enumerate any directories, so that we can try and start identifying any particular plugins, and you know, we can try and enumerate users. So let's run GoBuster first. So GoBuster directory brute force, the URL is http. Let me type that in correctly. We have the IP there. The word list I'm going to be using is, let's try and use seclists this time. So user share seclists, and we're looking for let's see, discovery. That's what we're looking for, discovery web content, and we're looking for, let's see, well, we have Apache running, but let's try the big list here, and we're gonna run 10 threads. So let's hit enter. That's going to begin the directory brute forcing for us. So we'll give that a few seconds to run. I don't want to run WordPress scan right now, primarily because we're pretty much chewing up all the bandwidth, I believe. I don't know what the system resources for the server are. But yeah, as for the other ports, it looks like, as I said, we have the Minecraft port, which I don't believe has a web interface. It's TCP, right? So we can actually try connecting to it with Netcat, but before we do that, let's try and get a firm grip on what's going on here. So I'm just going to let this complete the directory brute forcing, because it's going to take a while. It's only at 10%, so I'm just going to let that complete. In the meantime, we can try and explore the actual WordPress site. So I'm just going to head over back to the home page. We have our initial post here. Let's see if we can get any information from this, like the user. We probably can do that. We actually get the user there, the user notch. So, well, it's sort of poetic in a way that you have a Minecraft website and the author is Notch, not just the author or the developer of Minecraft, but for this particular site. So again, if we view the source here, I doubt we'll find anything, because again, WordPress, we're able to gather the theme. So 2017, that is... 2017 is a default theme, if I'm not wrong, because I actually do work with WordPress quite a bit, and it looks like a very simple configuration. As I said, I doubt we'll find anything here, and indeed we don't. We simply just have the SVGs or the images that have been added here, but nothing much. But yeah, we've been able to get the user and the theme, but we will still run WordPress scan just so we can identify the any other user. So let's actually do that now. Nikto hasn't generated or provided us with more information. We can actually use an nmap to scan or to enumerate specific WordPress users. So there are a few nmap scripts that we can use. So for example, if I list out my nmap directory here, so user share nmap scripts, and let's see, we're looking for let's actually grep out and let's look for WordPress, because I do believe, yeah, there we are. We have WordPress enum and WordPress users. So we're just gonna run WordPress users here. So I'm just gonna run this script. We know the web server is running on port 80, so sudo nmap, and let me just get the IP here because I keep forgetting it. So there were sudo nmap sv. The port number is port 80, and then the target is 10.194.67, right? I believe that's correct. And then the script is equal to, we paste in the script there, and let's hit enter, and let's see whether we're able to enumerate any users. Looks like I spelled a script incorrectly there, so let me just type in script, hit enter. That should work now. So I'm just going to let that run, as well as the GoBuster or the directory brute forcing with GoBuster here, and let's see what we're able to identify. All right, so it looks like GoBuster was able to detect a few interesting directories. We have plugins and phpMyAdmin, which makes sense because I was sort of thinking why we didn't have a MySQL server, but it's probably disabled, or it's probably been configured to run locally as opposed to being exposed on the internet, which is a good thing. So we can actually try that out, while we can also see that the nmap script here also essentially enumerated the user for us, which was Notch. So this script is great if you don't want to rely on, too much on WordPress scan. Nikto hasn't give us anything there, so again we'll just let that run. Although we have identified phpMyAdmin and plugins, so let's see if we can actually access them, because if this particular site is configured securely, let's see. So we have plugins first. So it looks like we have a few jar files. Well, yeah, this is a jar file as well. And this looks like a plugins site. I'm not really sure, just a file hosting system. File manager it's called. So yeah, and then we have a few plugins here. But it makes sense. These look like Minecraft plugins. So let's download these plugins. We can probably analyze them to see what data they actually store. So if I click on this, yeah, we can actually save it. So save that. And let's also save this here. There we are. So that's done. Let's try phpMyAdmin. So I'm just going to duplicate this here and phpMyAdmin. And let's see, that actually does work. All right. So we have phpMyAdmin. And yeah, so in order to access the database, we need some credentials. So let's see what we can do here. If we check out the GoBuster results, it should be complete now. There we are. Looks like, yeah, we get WordPress admin. We also get wiki. Interesting. Let's check out wiki as well. So looks like we have wiki. There we are, wiki, and it says under construction. Please check back later. We'll start publishing wiki articles after we've finished the main server plugin. All right, so it looks like they've been working on a server plugin. The new core plugin will store your playtime and other information in our database, so you can see your own stats. So which I believe this is their plugin here, although it could be Blocky Core, because the name of this box is Blocky and their WordPress website is again called Blocky. So let's if we go back to the root of the web server, you can see it's Blockycraft. So I think this is their custom plugin, and it looks like it stores data within the MySQL database server. So we probably can find the database credentials within the contents of the plugin. Now the plugin is a jar file, which I'm sure we can extract because jar is essentially just a package. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy that over. GoBuster is done here. So I'm just going to move those files. Let's see, we're moving the jar files from my downloads directory. So downloads, and let's see, .jar, and we'll move them into our current directory. There we are, we get them there, and let's extract them now. So I'll just open up my file browser here. We'll go into documents, HackTheBox Blocky, and Blocky Core. Let's start with that. So we want to extract that here, and it's going to create a folder for us. So we have the meta information and the com directory, which I think we can analyze. So if we open up a folder with VS Code here, so documents, HackTheBox Blocky, Blocky Core, hit OK. Let's see what we're able to find in here. So we have the com folder, and we have the Blocky Core class. All right, so I'm just going to open it anyway in my text editor here, and it says my first plugin Blocky Core. That's the domain. Let me just close this up here, and let's toggle word wrap, and we can see SQL user SQL pass. So this actually contains the configuration, and we're able to identify localhost root and what appears to be a password. So I'm guessing these are the database credentials. Let's actually try them out. So I'm going to copy that. So we have the root user. So if we actually are able to authenticate, we should have access to the MySQL database as the root user, which means consequently we can change the password of the WordPress admin, which I'm guessing there's only one user, and that's going to be Notch. So let's try and log in here. Root, I paste in the password there. And don't save, and yep, we get access to the phpMyAdmin dashboard here as the root user. So we can take a look at the actual databases. We can see the WordPress database, and within WordPress users, the WordPress users table, we have the user Notch, and the user login is Notch. We also get their email and the password, which is hashed, but we can modify that because WordPress users MD5, I think. So we can edit, and then the user pass, we can encrypt that with, do we have MD5 yet? There we are, MD5, and we can change it to something simple that I can remember. Let's see, let's just call it password 123, and yeah, we don't want to change anything. So you can see that this is the admin user because the ID is 1. So we hit go, and let's try and log in now. So can we actually access the WordPress admin login form? There we are. So we can say notch, and we then paste that in there, and I'm gonna hit remember me there. So that doesn't look like it's working. Let's try this notch there, because with a capital there, right, so we actually have to password is password 123. So log in, and that should log us in. I don't want to save that password. So again, Nikto hasn't generated anything, or hasn't enumerated any useful information. So I'm just going to stop that because it's not been able to find any directories. This is still loading for some reason, but yeah, let's see whether we can log in. If we log in, we can pretty much get a reverse shell on the target as the default service account for the web server, which in this case is the LAMP stack. So it's going to be data. So again, let me just wait for this to finish loading. There we are. It takes us to the admin dashboard. Let's dismiss that. Let's take a look at the themes that it has installed. So it's using 2017 as we were able to enumerate. We have 2015, 2016. These are the default themes that come with WordPress. If we take a look at the plugins that are installed, let's see. Yeah, so it looks like that's taking a while to load up. In the meantime, let's see. I think there's this particular server has been configured in some way where it actually, there we are, the plugins have loaded up now, which is interesting. So we have no active plugins, and we pretty much did not need to run WordPress scan, which is great, but primarily because, as you can see, our actual prediction was warranted because we don't have any plugins here that we can target. So in terms of getting a reverse shell, what we can do is we can, the easiest way to get a reverse shell on WordPress is to insert PHP code into one of the theme pages. So if I go into editor, to the theme editor here, and we don't want to use the active theme, let's use 2015. So I'll select that. We can specify a page here. So let's use the 404 page, which is the default one. So we can insert our PHP code, and we can actually update the theme files. So that looks like it works. Now for the theme directory, I believe that's under WordPress content themes. But yeah, let me actually copy over my PHP reverse shell. So I'm just gonna clear that out, and I'm just gonna copy it over from my desktop because I have the shell, PHP reverse shell, and there we are, PHP reverse shell, and we're just gonna copy it to my current directory, and I'll rename it to shell.php just so that it keeps things simple. Although we're not going to be uploading it, we're just going to modify the contents here. And the first thing I want to do, let me just get my VPN IP, and I'll copy that there. There we are. And we want to modify shell.php. And yeah, this is the pentest monkey PHP reverse shell. And we can change the IP here to our VPN IP. And we can leave the port as is. So that is 1234. Right, and quit. I'm just going to open this up in Visual Studio Code. So file, let's open up a folder here. Let's just open up the Blocky directory. There we are. And there we go. We should have shell.php. So I'm just going to copy this here. We can get rid of the comments, but that shouldn't affect anything. So we're just going to get rid of the 404 template, the PHP template, and let's just confirm that everything's working. There we are. Looks like that's configured correctly. Let's set up the reverse listener, or the reverse shell listener with netcat. So netcat nvlp 1234, that's the port we set up. Right, so now we want to hit update file, and that's done successfully. Now if we duplicate this, let's actually head over into the let's head over into the website itself, because it actually provides us, if we view the source here, just give me a second. Well, that's the image still, but let's view the page source. There we are. To access it, we simply say WordPress content themes 2015 in this case, and then the actual page template, which in this case will be 404.php. So let's see, WordPress content themes, let's paste that in there. So I'm just gonna again head back here, and we're gonna say WordPress content themes 2015. I'm not pronouncing that correctly or spelling that correctly. So 2015, and we then need to specify the page, which in this case is 404.php. So if we hit enter, that should give us a reverse shell, and indeed it does. So we're currently logged in as an unprivileged user, and we have the default Bourne shell here. And if we say, for example, do we have Python installed, so we can get a bash session, Python not found. So let's try bin bash I, and we get bash session there. Right, so now that we've got access, the default directory is going to be the, that just takes us to the root of the file system. That's interesting. But yeah, if we display the users on the system, we can see that we have a few service accounts for MySQL, SSH, FTP. We also have the Notch account and the root account, right? So that's our target. If we list out the contents of the home directory, I'm guessing we don't have permissions to access the home directory of the user Notch. So lsal home Notch. Let's see what we have in there. Right, so we have a few files as well as the user flag. So let's see if we can access that. Let's see, home Notch and user.txt, right? Yeah, permission denied. All right, so we can't access that. We also know that sudo as admin successful tells us that the user Notch has admin privileges or has sudo privileges or is part of the sudo group on Ubuntu. But we know we're running Ubuntu, but let's see what version we have here. So cat etc issue Ubuntu 16.04.2 LTS, uname R. The kernel version is 4.4062 generic. All right, so we have that information. So let's start performing some local enumeration. So the first thing we want to do is, of course, we can actually display the list of services here, and there are quite a few, as you would expect. We have the Blocky Craft plugin running, which I can spot there as well as a few others. We have the Apache web server running, nothing else down there. Let me just drag this here so we can actually see what's going on in the meantime. A few root services, but nothing interesting. So let's use an automated enumeration tool like linpeas just to see what we can enumerate. So I'll head over into my temp directory, and let's list out the files in here. Do we have anything interesting? No, we don't. Can we access the cron tab file? Yeah, that doesn't look like it's working. So let's quit out of that, set up the listener again, and launch that. We should get a reverse shell again. There we are. Bin bash, and there we are. Let's head over into the temp directory again. Right, so I'm gonna copy over linpeas first. So let me just head over to my desktop here. So desktop, Linux enum. This is where I store my enumeration script. So we have linpeas, Linux exploit suggester, and we'll try. Let's see what we can find firstly before we start doing anything crazy. So I'm going to set up my local web server on my web server with the Python module simple HTTP server, and my alias for that, as I've mentioned before, is just serve. It'll ask me for my password. It's going to host it on port 80, so we can use wget to download that. So HTTP. Do I have my VPN IP there? Oh, it's 10.10.14.107. So let me just copy that. And we're looking for linpeas.sh first, right? So that should download it. There we are. That we're able to get it successfully. chmod +x linpeas.sh. And let's run it. So linpiece.sh. So that's going to enumerate quite a bit of information, as you can expect, and I'll probably take you through all the sections here. So there is quite a lot of info that this will enumerate. So I'm just going to let this complete, because it's going to go through everything, including password mining or searching for credentials stored locally, which will take a bit of time. Through that process, we should identify the PHP myadmin credentials or the MySQL credentials, primarily because the WordPress config file should contain that information. But we're able to see firstly that for the operating system Linux kernel, we have it displays that information there. We have GCC installed, which is good. We can probably try and compile a few exploits. The host name is Blocky. We have ping and netcat available, which is good to know. Let's see what else we can find. Nothing there. System stats, CPU info. We already know it's running on a hypervisor, so that's not really important here. The environment variables, yeah, nothing interesting there. Linux protections is running on VMware, so yeah, we don't have anything there. Let's look for a bit, some more interesting information. For the processors, I don't think we'll find anything interesting there. It looks fairly standard. Let's see if we have any SUID binaries. We can identify any SUID binaries or vulnerabilities with sudo, because if we're running Ubuntu 16.04, we actually might find a few kernel exploits. So these are the cron jobs running. So cron jobs, we can't access any of them to begin with, because I'm going through them here. None of them look misconfigured. Yeah, these are pretty standard, so nothing there. Services running, we have Apache, App Armor. Let's see, nothing interesting there. We have the systemd path. Yeah, so we really aren't able to find anything. And of course, linpiece for some reason doesn't actually. Let's see. Ooh, that's taken us quite. That's actually distorted quite a bit. So let me just wait for this to finish. Although, as I said, linpiece should actually enumerate the kernel vulnerabilities or exploits. It should actually do it here, because there we are, system information. But it doesn't do that, which is interesting. So we haven't been able to identify any kernel vulnerabilities. But yeah, if we go to where it's actually reached right now. So yeah, it's searching for configuration files now. FTP files, we get what appears to be FTP configuration files, which I don't think will be useful right now. Let's see what else are we able to identify here. Nothing interesting there. Interesting files. Right, so these are the SUID binaries here. It looks like we have a few vulnerabilities for specific SUID binaries, but we can't use them, right? Because their permissions have been set correctly, so we can't actually exploit them. So nothing there in regards to shared object injection for any of these SUID binaries. In any case, as I said, we can't access them. Yeah, and that's pretty much it, it looks like. So it goes through backup files, which can give us a bit of information. But yeah, so let's try and use the Linux exploit suggester tool now. There we are. These are the credentials it was able to find locally. So yeah, we get the PHP myadmin credentials from the WordPress config file, it looks like. And no other credentials that are useful here. Are we able to identify? So you can actually see that this will display quite a bit of information. We know that that is the database credentials for the WordPress user, I believe. Yeah, DB user is WordPress, so we get that as well, although that's not going to give us much in terms of elevating our privileges. Right, so let's just use the Linux exploit suggester. So that's done. I'm just going to transfer the Linux exploit suggester now. So wget http and again, just type in my IP here, 10.10.14.107 and less.sh. That's what it's actually called. We hit enter. That should get it for us. There we are. All right, so let's run it. Less.sh. We hit enter. And yeah, we are able to identify what appears to be a few kernel. I can see dirty cow, that makes sense, but we have the first one. It's probably the best option when you're using the Linux exploit suggester. Right, so the exposure is highly probable. We have the actual POC here, or the reference link. So let's try and see what that's about, as well as the exploit DB link. So copy address. Well, is that the actual exploit code? I'm not sure. Right, so this is a kernel exploit. Let's see what it does here. So it looks like it's called the getrect linux harden.c exploit, and we have the CVE code here, and we have a few mentions here, or actual looks like a few comments here. One of the best or worst Linux kernel vulnerabilities of all time. The vulnerability allows for arbitrary read and write access to the Linux kernel, bypassing MEP or SMAP, and vulnerability. So there we are. It's possible to bypass the BPF filter. All right, okay, so that's interesting. Load BPF code, create a read and write primitive. The root cause of this vulnerability is improper arithmetic sign extension in, that's the correct spelling there, in check ALU. That's the check ALU OP function located within verifier.c. So there's an actual issue with the verifier code there. The improper arithmetic makes it possible to sign extension occur in either of the following cases. Right, so how do we run this particular exploit? We can actually take a look at the exploit DB code. Maybe that will share a bit of information there. All right, so it gives us information regarding the target kernels. We know we're running 4.4.062, so it does work on Ubuntu, which is the target operating system or distribution here. All right, so this is quite a long write-up here, but it can be used for privilege escalation, and there are a few mitigations there. So let's take a look at the exploit DB code. There are a few other references here. Right, so exploit DB, let me copy that address. Paste and go. Yeah, that's the download link. So let's just save it and let's analyze it. So I'm just gonna again go into my terminal here, and what we'll do is I'll just head over back into documents, HackTheBox Blocky, and we'll move it from my downloads folder. And what's the name of the file? It should be, there we are, that's the one there. Yeah, that's the one there, and we'll move it into our current directory. And let's try and see what this code is all about. Let's actually use VS Code here. There we are, that's the code there. So it gives us the vulnerable kernel versions as well as the compilation instructions. So we just need to run GCC, no additional instructions required. We can try compiling this particular exploit on our Kali VM first. So let's actually do that now. So we'll say GCC, provide the name there of the code file or the C code file. We'll output into, we'll just call it exploit. We hit enter, that compiles successfully. Again, I'll set up my local web server and let's see if we can transfer it to the target. So wget http and 10.10.14.107, and it's just called exploit, right? We hit enter, we're able to get it successfully. chmod +x exploit. We run the exploit here. Is that supposed to do anything? ls. All right, so we get a shell. Can we actually get a bash session here? Hit enter, we get, and we are the root user immediately. So we've been able to elevate our privileges successfully. So you can see we currently have root privileges. So I'm just going to get the flags now. So we have the, let's see, home, notch, and we can then cat the user.txt flag. There we are. And then of course cat root.txt, and we get the root flag as well. So yeah, that was fairly simple, but again, a very, very good box, you know, starting off from WordPress. A few rabbit holes you can actually go down, especially if you try, I'm not sure that will work, but brute forcing the SSH port, which is fairly common, and then a few other rabbit holes, probably the FTP server, but nothing else running on this. So it wasn't that complicated, but a fairly good introduction, I think, to exploitation, web app exploitation for, CMSs like WordPress, and then of course a local enumeration, and then privesc via kernel exploit, which is fairly simple. I'm trying to look for boxes that have, or that actually will allow me to demonstrate SUID exploitation or SUID binary exploitation, so that I can take you through privilege escalation that way, because that's also a very, very useful technique. I'll probably do a bit more research on that, but yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. If you enjoyed this video, or if you have any suggestions, post them in the comments section. You can also check out our Discord server. We have multiple channels dedicated to virtual hacking lab sites like HackTheBox, Try Hack Me, Vulnhub. So you can actually come in there, learn a lot from the community, and also contribute, help out, so on and so forth. So yeah, I'm also active quite a bit on there. The link to the Discord server is in the description section, and I'll see you there. So cheers, see you guys later. A huge thank you to all of our Patreons. Your support is greatly appreciated, and this is a formal thank you. So thank you Shamir Douglas, Ryan Carr, Sandor, Michael Busby, Sid Saab, Doozy, Tafim Bari, Dustin Umpress, and Michael Hubbard. Your support is greatly appreciated, and you keep us making even more high quality content for you guys. So thank you.